Welcome everybody to the AZ LAX Report. I'm your host Brian Petillo, and I'm here today with my co-host Alex Garwood. It's another beautiful Sunday in Arizona, and we are here to give you the latest and greatest lacrosse content in State 48. As a reminder, we're partnered with BeAGoodHumanCoffee.com. Be a good human, live bravely, and love fiercely. Check out their website for coffee, tea, and merch, where 100% of the profits go to Fight Like Flow Foundation and support pediatric cancer research. Alex, it's a nice hot Sunday here in the desert as we're recording this on Sunday night. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's this time of year where we're kind of in that mix between, really hot weather and really nice weather. And it's the ever-going emotional battle between, should I enjoy the nice weather while I have it, or should I dread the heat that's kind of around the corner? So I'm going to choose to be happy and enjoy the nice weather and enjoy it while we have it. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think I said it before, I'm a hot weather guy, so bring on the 100-degree days. That doesn't bother me. I like, if I never have to feel cold for another second for the rest of my life, I will be a happy person. So I'm looking forward to it. And I'm also looking forward to the ALL playoffs that are going to be starting this week as people are listening to this podcast. And we're going to talk a little bit about a preview of the bracket and the first round matchups. But first, let's recap the end of the regular season. We're going to run through what was the final week of ALL lacrosse and some of the highlights from those games. So we started out on Monday where Brophy Varsity 2 defeated West Valley 9-7. Kathan Charuki, Jake Smith, and Nick Lasota paced the Broncos 2 goals apiece, overcoming a 6-point night by Max Matthey for the Wild. Let's see, awesome. Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday we had Oro Valley beating Corona 8-5, 3 points to Connor Durazo and Grayson Kang for Oro Valley, leading them to beat a tough Corona squad that just had a nice two win week after getting the AZ LAX Report bump. Moving on to Scottsdale beating Foothills 16-8. Harry Gurash and Will Elfline with 7 points each and 11 goals between them. Recent guest Jack Berman with 14 ground balls in the night as well. I'm guessing a lot of those were face-off wins, so credit to those guys. Good win there. Cactus Shadows beating Cactus 16-7. No stats for that game as of yet, but shout out to Thomas Myrick and Noah Robb with 4 points each in the loss there on Cactus.
Yeah, and then moving on, we had Higley, big win over South Point 15-6, led by 5 goals and 2 assists for Cal Harris, while Easton Ellefson and Caden Sanchez recorded 6 points as well, 6 points each as well. And then big matchup of the night, Brophy beats Desert Vista 19-6. I'm going to expand on this one a little bit. This was the Brophy senior night. We try to be, a very unbiased podcast, but I do have some relationships with Brophy, having do the broadcast. You've heard me talk about that here as well. So I want to give a shout out to that Brophy team on their senior night. In the game, we had 4 goals and 2 assists from Laird Miller, 2 goals and 4 assists for Eric Wolfson, 6 points each. 2 members of a senior class that has left a really big legacy already, I think, in the ALL, and that's not even done yet as they get to these playoffs here now. But I also want to make sure I shout out. I think I've mentioned it on the podcast. I came out here. First team I started coaching with was in the 7th and 8th grade Scottsdale United team with Pat Harbison. That's how I got involved with lacrosse out here. And a couple guys are on that team that I got to coach. Laird Miller, Eric Volson, Noah Burdick, Charlie McGinnis, and Mitchell Boyer. I really hope I'm not missing anybody. I don't think I am. They were all on that team, so they were part of the first team that I got to coach, so it was really cool to see their senior night there. They did get stiffed on a Cactus Cup that year. It was the COVID year when the season ended. Well, we were undefeated and on our way to, I think, what we would have had some extra hardware there. But we know that those guys have won a lot already, so I don't think their trophy cases are too empty. So shout out to those Brophy seniors. You get a little extra AZ LAX Report bump. And it's cool to see guys I've coached with. You've talked about, Alex, you've had some kids that you've coached younger on. See them compete at the high level is a really good thing there.
Oh
And
yeah, man. I mean, I'm in my eighth season here at Pinnacle, and I'm at the stage where I've actually coached two generations of brothers, all 4 years each. So I got to coach, freshman through senior year for both the Dirk brothers. So shout out to them.
that's awesome. And speaking of you and Pinnacle, big win that night over Perry. Big for the
Yes.
playoff standings that we'll talk about. 9-8. Why don't you tell us about that game?
Man, friend of the pod, Dylan Finder was the enemy of of Pinnacle that night. He's a tough guy to stop, as we've heard in previous episodes, and credit to Perry. We love playing those guys in overtime. 3 out of the 4 games that we've played them have been in overtime. So we got the better of them on Tuesday, but it was a really tough fought matchup. We had a lot of senior leadership step up in that game, and we had Logan Weiler had the dagger at the very end. He had 1 goal on the night, and it happened to be the overtime winner. So glad to have to come out with a hard fought win that game.
Nice.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Aiden Ray's 20 saves and 71 save percentage on some tough shooters on the Perry side.
Oh yeah, for sure. That sounds like that's a big night in net for your goalie there. I'll jump into our Wednesday report out here. Brophy Varsity 2 defeats Notre Dame Prep Varsity 2 10-4. We had a little battle of the Varsity 2 teams. Goalie Brady Blotzel strong in net for the Broncos, 15 saves and a 79% save percentage on the night. Big night for him. And then Higley defeats Cactus 15-2. 5 points for Max Wagner, 14 ground balls for Tage Mullins for Higley in that win. And then Thursday night, you had kind of a quick turnaround there as your team took on Desert Vista again, defeated them 12-9. You want to fill us in on that one?
Yeah, so that game got moved. That was our senior night, and we really wanted to honor our seniors and play on our football field. And as probably half the state knows, we've had a lot of field issues this season with field allocations and getting support from the school and everything else. And Thursday was available, so we moved it from Friday and had a good senior night there. Great performance from a lot of our seniors that game. A hat trick for Davion Graves, who isn't a senior but has been kind of been a big kind of key contributor to our team. Anytime you get these Grand Canyon matchups, it's always going to be a battle. Desert Vista made a run at the end and made it really tough for us to come out with the victory at the end there. But yeah, it was a good game, and glad that the seniors got to finish what could be their last game on at Pioneer Stadium with a win.
Yeah, that's a big one there, and as we said, we'll get to those playoffs. You want to round out Friday for us?
Yeah, definitely. So Notre Dame Prep beat Oro Valley 19-9. The 3 big players for NDP, Caden Wright, 8 points on 5 goals, 3 assists, while Dylan Rardin and Gunnar Perry combined for 9 goals on 6 points each. Jake Traylor, friend of the pod, with 10 ground balls. 10 ground balls, Bryan. And Caleb Casey, their face-off player, with 11 ground balls. Anytime you get into the double-digit category for ground balls, you're going to win because ground balls win games.
Yeah.
Cactus took down Sal Point 17-5. No stats for that game, but sure, it was a nice, well-balanced offense on the Cactus side there with 17 goals. Arcadia shuts out Foothills 15-0. So this was a game that I thought was extremely interesting because it wasn't but 2 weeks ago that Arcadia beat Foothills 3-2 as the final.
Wow,
and,
that's right. Yeah.
Right? And Foothills coming up north to play Arcadia, and they got shut out 15-0. So another friend of the podcast, Davis Witherspoon, alongside Luke Mellon with 6 points each. Shutout for goalie Gavin Fuller. but also have to give the defense credit as he only faced 7 shots against, so that's a strong defensive night for the Titans. Bryan, how many shutouts have you put up in your career?
I think we asked this before. I believe that I technically, as like a team, had one shutout start to finish. I always seem to like let in one goal especially really in like especially at the high school level. It'll always be like, oh, they got one goal and like ruin the shutout. But I think there's one officially on the books for me in my career. So that's good.
Awesome. Yeah, perfection, is usually unattainable, but the pursuit of perfection, should be kind of the standard for, high level really anything. So totally get it.
Yeah. Let's end the regular season here with the last 3 games. Brophy really dominating victory over Boulder Creek, 21-1. It's been a tough season for that Boulder Creek squad. Laird and Eric paced away again, 6 and 5 points each respectively. Deion James, team leading 12 ground balls. And even though this wasn't a shutout, I want to give all 3 goalies credit. They all saw time in that game. Ryan Peitzmeyer, Mitchell Boyer, and CJ Wendell for Brophy, as well as that whole defensive unit. Holding the team to 1 goal against and only 3 shots on goal. So really stout defensive effort there. We also had Scottsdale defeat Corona 11-7. Unfortunately, we don't have any stats for that one. And then the big game of the night. Higley plays Cactus Shadows. Winner takes home the trophy. I was there doing my vice commissioner responsibilities, bringing the trophy in and ready to present it like it was the Stanley Cup. The winner
Boots
of
on the
that,
ground, baby.
yeah, exactly, right. If everyone was watching our Instagram, you saw that there. Winner gets into the playoffs as well, so really important as opposed to the other 2 conferences. We know everyone's getting in. Cactus Conference, the winner is the team that makes the playoffs. So it came down to, it just worked out that Higley and Cactus Shadows was the final matchup there to determine 1 and 2. And Higley ends up taking home the victory with the strong win, 11-3 over Cactus Shadows. 4 goals for Max Wagner and 3 for Cal Harris. And a strong night in goal from Sam Verpalot. 15 saves, only 3 goals against, so good night in net for him. Higley gets the victory, they get the trophy, and they get to take part in the playoffs. Okay, awesome. So there we go. That's our final regular season wrap-up, Alex. I think we did a pretty good job this season, though, in trying to recognize everybody. So we hope everybody enjoyed that, and we're looking forward to, I know next regular season's a ways away, but we're looking forward to keep this going.
Awesome. Let's go over the division champions. So in the Grand Canyon Conference, we have Brophy taking the crown there. Desert, Arcadia, and then Cactus, as you mentioned, Higley taking the victory there.
Yeah, and those conference champions were, just to note on everybody, were not just based off lax numbers. That was based off record and a few other tiebreakers that went into it there. So that was important for determining, who won the conference championship. Of course, though, as we mentioned, those top 2 divisions, or everyone is making the playoffs, and the seeding will be for lax numbers. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but just want to make sure we point that out for everybody.
Definitely. Let's go over the final regular season stat leaders. So for goals, we have Cal Harris of Higley with 43, Luke Mellon of Arcadia with 39, and Dylan Rardin of NDP with 35. On assists, we have Cooper Perry, 23, with Notre Dame Prep, Max Wagner of Higley, and with 23 as well, and then Cal Harris with 20, and he's on Higley as well. Total points, Cal Harris finished pacing the league with 63 points. Luke Mellon of Arcadia with 54 points, and Dylan Rardin of NDP with 50.
Nice, yeah, strong performances there. Yeah. So let's go over goalies. So I've mentioned this before when we've done it. It's a little challenging, kind of the way our stats are, and sort of tracking kind of qualifications and comparing goalies across our different divisions and depending on sort of games played and things like that. So for our kind of final rankings here, I decided to take players who saw a minimum of 150 shots against them. So that qualified about 13 goalies in our league. And I took the top 5 because, again, we've kind of got a mix of players that are coming from all 3 conferences. So I wanted to make sure I got a good mix here. So in save percentage, our top 5 in order, Nathan Bowden, West Valley, 63% as our leader, along with Gavin Fuller from Arcadia, 63%. Brady Baltzel from Brophy Varsity 2, we mentioned him before, 62% on the year. Aiden Ray at Pinnacle, your goalie there, Alex, 61%, and Grant Miller at Corona. We heard from his coach, PJ Rovinelli, talk about him, 60%. So those are our top 5 in save percentage of goalies who had a minimum of 150 shots against them. And then looking at goals against average, this is kind of a crude average of games played. Sam Verpalot, Higley, 5.62. So strong goalie play helping pace that team into the playoffs. Gavin Fuller from Arcadia again, 6.33. Brady Baltzel, Brophy Varsity 2, 6.5. Grant Miller, Corona, 6.6. Nathan Bowden, West Valley, 7.17. So you notice there's a few names that aren't in there, really amongst kind of the other Grand Canyon competition. We're going to hear from our guest, Diggy Balderrama. He's the goalie at Desert Vista. And he's been an award winner, great goalie in the season here. So, we try to make sure that we're giving credit to everybody there. But we know it's a little tough sometimes with divisions and matching up against those Grand Canyon teams. So definitely want to point out really good performance by Aiden Ray there in save percentage in that Grand Canyon conference. And, Gavin Fuller in the Desert Conference showing up as well, too. So good for them and for all the goalies there. I love to give all the goalie love.
Perfect.
All right.
Bryan, do you want to explain how the ALL regular season awards are going to work?
Yeah, and I think this is a good thing. One of the things we want to do with the podcast here is help, make sure we're explaining how things happen and making that connection between, the teams and the league and the players and bringing it all kind of together. So I thought it'd be good to just kind of clarify the process when we start talking about like All-State and all division awards and things like that. So the regular season awards, there is a set number of positions that can get it. I think we have a first team, second team, third team, and honorable mention, and it's broken out into your standard positions as well as face off and things like that. All players in all teams are eligible for awards. There's a nomination process where coaches nominate players they think should be considered, and then all head coaches meet and get to vote on that. When the players are being nominated, coaches are submitting their stats as well as a little blurb that maybe explains a little bit that you don't necessarily just get from numbers. Particularly it's important when you talk about like defensive players, things like that, and even, goalies, as I mentioned before too. So all those coaches have seen the players play. They get to see those write-ups and those stats, and then they vote. And that's essentially how those regular season awards are determined. So at this point, the voting's been complete. I do believe the announcement will come later as we get closer to the championship, if not in the championship. But we wanted to point out that it's about as fair a process as I think we can have. And in that meeting, coaches can talk about their players, and I think it's pretty fair. I've mentioned, we had some conversation on our Instagram page where I came from in New York. Things like All County and like All State were actually like gated out by where you finished in the season. So like if you were teams, 13 through 17, you could only have 3 all-county players out of those teams and stuff like that. So, you could never have an All-American, even if, you had somebody who was potentially of that caliber. So, we've got a pretty democratic process here in the ALL. So I think, that will be good for getting players recognition. And then, we've had an ALL All-Star game, previously. We're not having one this year. That was a decision that the league had made along with, voting from the coaches. But we are still going to be recognizing ALL All-Stars, and that process is a little bit different. Coaches get to nominate 2 players for their team, and that is a guaranteed 2 players from each team. So I think we've got a pretty good balance of merit awards as well as recognition for teams and getting a chance for everybody to be recognized for that.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad that you mentioned your experience because mine was very, similar as well. the ALL really kind of gives the opportunity to kind of shout out and recognize special players from every team in the league, which is cool because as you mentioned, like we have a lot of talent in State 48, and it's cool to see them get recognized. Let's kind of transition over to the playoffs. So the official bracket has been released on the ALL Instagram page. In round one,
actually, hold on, Alex. Let me pause you here for a second.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we're addressing a question that some people probably have already. And unfortunately, this episode will probably air Monday night, so you may already have the answer to it. But some astute observers of the social media page may notice that the original bracket that was posted on Saturday after the lax number rankings came out is different than what has been posted this evening on Sunday, April 21st. There's been an updated bracket that was posted on the Instagram page that has a few changes here. So I want to just kind of get ahead of it, sort of explaining what happened there as you kind of go through the rankings here. So as we've mentioned, away from the start, the Grand Canyon and Desert Conference have 11 teams. Those 11 teams are going to make the playoffs and be seeded by lax number rankings. Catalina Foothills was ranked number 11 going into the matchup here in the bracket. Unfortunately, they had spoken with the league and are unable to field a team to partake in the playoffs. So the league competition committee reviewed it and decided to offer the next position to what would be essentially the next ranked team out of the Cactus Conference by the actual Cactus rankings, not lax number rankings. That would be Cactus Shadows. Unfortunately, Cactus Shadows also was unable to field a competitive team. So then we moved to the third team that was going to be ranked there with tiebreakers and whatnot, and that was Brophy Varsity 2. So as you kind of run down our first round matchups here, these are different than what was posted on the website Saturday originally. This is the updated bracket, and if you're wondering why the teams look different and a slight change to the seeding as a result of that, that is the reason why. So with that said, Alex, why don't you run down the first round matchups here?
Yeah, we got Scott's, and all these games are happening on Tuesday, correct, Bryan?
Yeah, correct. This will be Tuesday. We'll kick off our playoffs.
Beautiful. So we have Scottsdale taking on Oro Valley, Arcadia taking on Brophy Varsity 2, Boulder Creek taking on Corona, and Desert Vista taking on Higley.
Yeah, and then matching up will be the four teams, 1 through 4, who received a bye in the first round. Brophy is seeded number 1. Notre Dame Prep is number 2. Pinnacle, your team, Alex, number 3. And Perry, number 4. So the bracket is shaped up with those 4 teams getting that first round bye. And before we kind of maybe expand a little bit on the games here, I want to talk a little bit about bracket challenge. So we thought it'd be fun to have an opportunity for our listeners to predict out the results of the bracket March Madness style. If you're listening to this podcast, the information on how to do the bracket challenge should already be posted on Instagram, and hopefully you've already signed up and put your predictions in to see who gets the most right, and probably have a tiebreaker for closest score, I believe, for the championship game. But we thought it'd be fun to open this up to everybody. The second or latter part of our podcast here, we are going to have some guests pop on and share their bracket predictions, so you can compare that to them. And that's why we're going to kind of push this as you're hearing this. It'll most likely be Monday night. If you've by some chance not seen it on Instagram yet and you want to sign up, go ahead and get those picks in either late Monday night or on Tuesday, all day leading up to that first round matchup. So we're excited, and we're working on maybe a little unofficial prize to the top choice. But if you've been listening or you're following along with the league and you think you know how it's going to go and want to make your predictions, it's your chance to get a little bit in the spotlight here. Put your money where your mouth is, as they say, even though it's a free contest. So legally want to make sure we point that out.
That's right. Yeah, I'm excited to see who wins the old Nostradamus award.
Yeah, there we go. And speaking of kind of these first round matchups, I think we'll put in for our episode next week. I think we'll get a little more of a really, really detailed matchup as we go into what'll be the Final Four. We'll know at that point. So just kind of high level looking over it here, Scottsdale, Oro Valley. Now, Alex, I know you're a coach, so you're actively partaking. I won't ask for too much of your thoughts here, but if I was kind of giving my thoughts early on what my bracket might look like, I think that's going to be a good matchup, and I think I would take Scottsdale in that one. That's going to be that's an 8-9 ranking matchup. I think Scottsdale has played pretty competitively, so we'll see how that one shapes up. The next matchup, Arcadia, Brophy Varsity 2. Arcadia's been really, really good this year. They've played Grand Canyon teams really well, and of course winning the Desert Conference. So good team there with Arcadia. I think Arcadia is going to be able to take that victory there behind the offensive play of friend of the pods. We've mentioned Davis Witherspoon, Luke Mellon as well, and their goalie making a really strong defensive side there. Boulder Creek and Corona. This one's going to be an interesting one. Boulder Creek has had, I mentioned it in the score updates, a little bit of a rough season. They end up, because of the ranking system, they're ranked number 7, despite having a pretty tough win-loss record. Corona, on the other hand, played some tough teams. I don't have the record in front of me. I think they finished like 7-6 or something like that. I probably should check. So, especially since PJ listens, and he'll probably be hitting his steering wheel as he's driving in on his commute and listening to us get the record wrong. But I am going to support Coach PJ Rovinelli. I think Corona is going to get the quote unquote upset.
7-6.
Yeah. All right. There we go. So I was good. No need for anyone to be upset there. We'll get that victory. I think Corona will pull off that, like I said, quote unquote upset. And then Desert Vista versus Higley. Higley getting to represent as the champion in the Cactus Conference. On this podcast, you're going to hear from our guest, Diggy, strong goalie there for Desert Vista. I think that'll be a good matchup and a good game, but I'm going to go with the experience of Desert Vista in that game, and that's going to be, I think, my first round matchups there in the bracket. Again, Alex, I'm not going to have you pick anybody since you're actively coaching and playing here, but any other thoughts or anything you wanted to mention around the playoffs and the bracket?
Yeah, I mean, it's cool seeing the bracket, on the coaching side, just because being in the conference that we're in, we haven't played, a lot of these teams on that are in the playoffs. So Oro Valley, Arcadia, Brophy V2, Corona, Higley, these are all teams that I haven't played, therefore don't have a scouting report for or anything. So I can really kind of only speak on the teams that we have played. And Scottsdale, Berman's a fantastic face-off guy, also a friend of the pod. So selfishly, I'd love to see them get past Oro Valley to see Dion versus Berman there. Because they haven't played a good matchup this season. Yeah. So the way I see it, it's a battle of two kind of the toughest face-off guys in the state. So I think that'd be a really cool matchup. Obviously, I'm pulling for our boys, friends of the pod, over at Arcadia. Both Luke Mellon and Davis Witherspoon are top class of the league for points, goals, and assists, and there's a reason for that. Arcadia is definitely having a special year, so it's going to be tough for Brophy V2 to take them on. Boulder Creek Corona, that's a tough one. I coach a lot of guys on that Boulder Creek team in the summer, and they've got some ballers on that team. I don't know that they're gonna take Corona lightly. I think they're gonna come ready to play. And Corona's having a really solid year too. They've got a really stout defense. Have been holding teams to some really low numbers. So I'm really excited to see the results of that one. And Desert Vista and Higley. You have Cal Harris, the top points getter in the league with 40 what he's got 63 points in the league, and Max Wagner, the freshman they have there, with 23 assists as well. They got some dangerous offensive weapons there, but Diggy's pretty stout in net, so I don't know that they're going to be able to get too many past him, but we'll see.
Yeah, and that's some good extra info there. I love it. And just to kind of go over the dates for everybody again, so this podcast, you'll hear this on Monday. The first round begins Tuesday, April 23rd. The quarterfinals will be that Friday, April 26th. And then I believe I'm getting this right. Then Tuesday would be the semifinals, the 30th. And then the state championship would be on Friday, May 3rd. So when we get to our podcast next week, we'll be able to do a really in-depth Final Four preview of the semifinals and talk about potentially the championship game. And Alex, hopefully your Pinnacle Pioneers are one of the teams we're talking about. We'll be pulling for you for sure. So that is the ALL playoff bracket. And as I mentioned before, if you've not already seen info from the bracket challenge on our Instagram page and you're hearing this now, go check it out, sign up, put a bracket in, and hopefully you get a chance at our soon-to-be determined surprise prize we'll have for our top picks there. All right. And, I'm just going to say it again, Alex, we're through the regular season now. I think this has been really fun to be able to highlight these players, highlight coaches, talk about things that are happening in the league. I think we've really got some good info from coaches and players that other people listening can take home, things about recruiting, things about what to work on, what's important, what are things coaches are looking for. So I've been pretty happy with it. I'm excited for the rest of our playoff episodes. So before I ask you what else you've been watching, any final thoughts as we wrap up the ALL regular season, the first one being reported on by the AZ LAX Report?
Man, it's been a special season. It's been a special year, both as a coach and doing this podcast. It felt like I've got to know a lot of the names and faces in this league a lot better because of it, and I've had a blast doing it. Just talking lacrosse with players and coaches in Arizona has been great. I know you and I have had offline conversations about future seasons of this thing and what it can come to. So appreciate all the listeners that gave two guys talking lacrosse in Arizona a chance, and appreciate to all the positive feedback that we've gotten so far.
Yeah, well said, Alex. And on that note, we always welcome feedback. I've talked to a lot of people in person. We've gotten messages on Instagram. Always looking to hear what are the things that you guys want to hear us talk about, who are guests that you want on. We're going to try and do our best there. I think we've got some fun things planned for the off season, as you mentioned, just kind of being able to keep up some of the momentum of this. So I'm excited. I think our goal is to make sure we're being a mouthpiece for the league and the players and recognition of that, and also to help play our role in growing the sport. And again, I think after the season, we're going to have some good conversations around what that might look like and some ways we can kind of help that happen. So definitely always interested in everyone's feedback on that. So wrapping up ALL there, outside of our great little Arizona Lacrosse League, what else have you been up to, Alex? You've been watching anything good? I think there was a good college game you mentioned.
Yeah, I would say great college game, probably game of the year up to this point. So Syracuse played Virginia this past weekend, yesterday, and 35 goals combined in the game. It was a 18-17 victory for the Orange, and there's just something about kind of rivalry week in college lacrosse that just means just that much more. Seeing Michigan and Ohio State, and Maryland and Hopkins, and Syracuse and Virginia, and this game happened to be game of the year in my opinion. This game was tied. In the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, Virginia was down by one, and then made a really kind of powerful rally there in the fourth quarter until Syracuse netted a few towards the end there and came out with the victory. But this game had everything. It had highlight goals, great defensive stops, transition, great face-off play, great defensive play. Despite the 18-17 score, when you get the best athletes in college with a shot clock, goals are going to happen. Just a lot of shots happen in those kind of games. But yeah, that's probably one of the better college lacrosse games I've seen in a while. And if you have ESPN Plus, you're going to be able to watch a replay of that, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah, there you go. So everybody listening at home, go check that out. See some good lacrosse that's been going on. It'll be nice as we wrap up the ALL playoffs here. I think we'll be able to talk a little bit about the NCAA playoffs when that gets started. Kind of share some thoughts on that as well too. So exciting things happening in the springtime here with lacrosse across the country. So we thanks everybody for listening. Enjoy our interviews, and we'll talk to everybody next week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
We are excited to welcome our first goalie to the podcast. This talented junior has already made a name for himself as one of the toughest backstops in the ALL, leading the Desert Vista Thunder into the playoffs that start on Tuesday. We're happy to welcome Diego Diggy Balderrama to the podcast. Diggy, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing good today.
Thanks. Well, we appreciate you joining us here. We're recording this on Sunday night. We know you're getting ready for the playoffs, but let's take a step back. We know the regular season ended Friday. Your team with a record of 6-7. Before we get into the playoffs and what your road to the championship might be like, what stands out to you from this past season? Is there a particular game that comes to mind? A teammate maybe who's been a really key part of your team? When you think about this regular season and your team, what comes to mind?
I mean, well, we have the we have the two main parts, of course. There's Levi, who's a great face off, and like that's mainly how we stay in games a lot. And then, of course, Cal, who's just a great defender. He'll go from LSM to close, and it just really sticks out from there. Um, Nothing much really, other than those two guys sticking out the most for me.
Yeah.
They helped me a lot. So,
What about a game? What do you think? What was your most memorable game this season?
probably going against Perry and OT. Uh, I was a well fought game that we like. I'm pretty sure we went down a little bit, and then they went back up, and then they tied it, and then Carrick is he's real clutch. Came up like three different times this season and scored two winning goals, I think, and then against who was it? Scottsdale, like with like 2 seconds left in the game, he just scored it, and that was. But other than that, Perry was a great game for him. He had like four, so
Yeah, and I think you had 20 saves in that game. Was that the highest save total that you had this season? Was in that overtime game against Perry?
yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 20. I don't know, I don't remember that much, but I just remember winning, and it was a great time.
Always good
Yeah.
to get a win into overtime. So playoffs, a little bit of a switch in your opponent. Won't get into that here much, but you'll end up playing Higley. Kind of what's been the messaging from your coaching staff going into the playoffs, and is there anything that you think is different when you get to the postseason and how you treat it?
Um, for me, nothing really changes from postseason to regular season. I treat it as equal as it can be, but the Higley matchup, I mean, we're just gonna treat it like every other game. Do a little film here and there, and then as much as we can, and then just come out ready to win. That's the main goal.
All right. Yeah, and that's going to be, the playoffs. It's a grind. You've been to the championship game before. I think not last season, the season before that. So,
hmm
as you go through these games, you get ready for the season. What do you think your team's got to focus on to get to that championship game again?
I'd probably say ground balls. Like that's a huge one for us, and then maybe man up a little bit, but ground balls is for sure. Ground balls, like that one. That one kind of hurts us a little bit here and there. So,
Well, that's big. We know how important those are to wins and losses there. So let's talk a little bit about you now and your play. So, how did you get introduced to lacrosse? When did you start playing? And then, when did you start playing goalie and how'd you get into that position?
Well, my older brother played, and he's 10 years older, so he started playing during middle school when he was 13 and 14, and that's when I picked up a stick. And then I got introduced to like because he went to Mount Point, so I was playing for their little feeder team. They're like the Mountain Lions, something like that. I played that when I was like 5 to 6, and then they kind of stopped after that because I don't know what happened to Mount Point. And then I went into Awatuki Lightning, and then I was there with Bill Lynch, and from there on, and then I got to like fifth grade, and they were like, "You want to try something different?" And I was like, "Sure, might as well." And then I got pretty good at it from the beginning, and then ended up starting from sixth grade on, and it was just like I kind of got annoyed with running midi a lot, like running down, running up and down. So like it was just like something I could do, and it was like just easy, and it came quick to me. So
Yeah, I'm
that's
with
how that
you.
really started.
Yeah, I hate running. I probably, should have played goalie. If you had to switch positions today, what position would you play?
Probably defensive midi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A lot of running in that though.
Yeah.
yeah, but like it's probably the only part where I would be like genuinely really good because then
How's
I could start
how's your
because
shot?
um on a scale of 1 to 10, I rated about a 6.
Okay, okay.
Hey,
Not too bad.
that's
That's
the
not too
good for a
bad.
short stick team midi, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
the I do think it's funny you fall into the classic stereotype of like, why is he playing goalie? Like, well, he doesn't like running. So yeah, I'm glad you're reinforcing that one there too. And speaking of mountain lions, this is a funny random story. I'm pretty sure it was like, I don't know if it was the first time I went down to Desert Vista. We were broadcasting one of the games. I'm quite certain I almost ran over a bobcat that like ran in front of me when I was driving, like
Whoa.
at night, like leaving. Do you have bobcats down there?
Yeah, we actually have a couple. They be popping up on the Awatuki 401. They just be
Yeah,
like random.
I saw this thing. I was like, that was not a coyote, and I'm like, that was something different. It was probably a bobcat, but yeah, there you go, Rand. I did not hit it, thankfully. He was far
Uh,
enough in front of me, but he just ran across though. But yeah, so you've been playing for a while there, and we always like to ask everybody, what your favorite lacrosse memory was, and I'll preface and say, you don't have to say winning the Sandstorm tournament when you played for me on the Outlaws team in 2022. I know that's probably up there, but we'll let you pick a different one.
well, I mean that one was up there, of course, because I broke my thumb that game actually and still played and we still won, which was actually amazing. But probably my freshman season, the first time going up against MVP, they went up like 9-2 in the first half, and then once half went on, we played the whole half and three extra quarters, and we won 10-9, which was
Wow.
outstanding.
It's a big comeback.
No, it really was. I didn't expect it to happen, but we were just on one, and then Canyon scored the game-winning goal, which was I will always remember that game. That was probably my best game.
Yeah, that's a good one, and we should give you credit for that Sandstorm tournament. I think that was probably start to finish the best I had seen you play in those tournaments. You really helped carry our team there, and you did, Alex. His thumb was broken. We didn't really know it was broken. We were just like, "You all right?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm good. I could play still." And he gutted it out, and we played a team from Jersey, right? They were from New Jersey, I think.
Yeah, the
So.
Mad Dog jersey
Yeah,
away
so
team.
we a little rival New York, New Jersey rivalry with me and Cody too. We really wanted to give it to him, and Diggy came through in the clutch for us that tournament. So that was a good one.
Love that, taking
Yeah,
down the Jersey Dogs.
Yeah.
Um, so you're a junior now, kind of looking past, high school. What's that kind of process been like for you, kind of to the start of, your recruiting and looking at schools and just kind of give us an update on where you're at.
well, it's still open. PJ's there for me the whole time, and I'm so glad to have him because I don't know how I would do this without him probably because he's just and we're just still trying to find a home.
And
So
that's PJ Rovinelli.
yeah,
Yeah, Coach PJ, who we had on the podcast
Friend of
last
the
week or
podcast,
2 weeks
PJ
ago.
Rovinelli.
2 weeks
Yep.
ago. Yeah.
yeah, he was my old coach as you guys know,
Yep.
and sucks he had to go, but uh, people come, people go. Coaches always, especially coaches. Um, Glad to have Coach Cody too right now. So young cat.
Nice. What do you, is there a certain area you're looking at schools, like geographically? Do you know like what kind of school you want to go to in terms of like academics and what you want to do, or are you just kind of really open to anything right now?
I mean, I want to go to the East for sure. Like that's for sure. But a lot of North Carolina schools I are interested in. That's where I kind of want to go right now. So, but we're still open completely.
Nice. North Carolina is a good place. I got a good friend of mine, his wife works in the athletic department at Duke. So if you want me to put a good word in over there with the Duke coach, I'll see what I can do.
Good to know. Good to know.
I was gonna say I looked at one school in North Carolina, Catawba College, way back in the day. So there you go. There's a shout out for the old Catawba there.
Where
Um,
where is that?
we flew into, gosh, where did we fly in for that?
Probably Raleigh or Charlotte.
We have
One of those.
Charlotte. Yeah, we flew in.
Yeah.
We flew into Charlotte. The campus, where was it, man? Honestly, like we went there for like a visit slash like showcase camp. They had this thing called the Dixie Top 150, and they hosted it at Catawba. So it was Catawba there, and then they had a bunch of other colleges around the area. They're a smaller D2 school. I'd have to kind of look up. Oh, okay, they're in Salisbury, North
Mm.
Carolina.
Yeah, there you
Um,
go.
but yeah, it was good. I mean, I visited in July, so it was very humid. They
Hot
had
and
these
humid.
they
Yeah.
had these massive like water stations like all over the campus, these things probably held like 200 gallons plus of water. And they had all these hoses hooked up to it, like, and they were all over the field just to make sure that guys were staying hydrated during this thing. And dorms were nice and quaint, so those small college dorms. But yeah, it was cool. I like the East Coast. I like Long Island better though.
Yeah.
Ah,
Brian,
That's the place to go.
yeah.
But all right. Well, let's bring it back to your, playing goalie again and kind of the position, how you play. And actually I was just thinking about this getting ready, and I want to ask because goalies are sometimes we're a little bit of a different breed, and I'm allowed to say that as a goalie. But I know, the warm up is so important for goalies, and everyone kind of likes things a little bit different. And so I want to hear, your warm up routine. Are you one of these guys
Mm.
who's very rigid on like, I want 5 minutes of this, 10 minutes at this point, 4 minutes before the game, I'm going to do this, or are you kind of a go with the flow when you're getting warmed up and ready to play in a game?
certain games on how I feel is it's just always a little different, more with the flow. I mean, I go until like I'm genuinely sweating like crazy because I love those kind of warm ups. That's
Yeah.
how I am, and I like you start from outside hard, blah blah blah, blah fast shots, and then I just finish off with a bunch of inside shots, which that's how I have to have it. I have to finish off with the inside shots. So that's probably the mainly thing, and then probably watching like a certain show is like it's a go-to. Like right before the game, I have to watch like one episode of it.
Oh, I like that. What's the show? Do you want to say it or?
Oh, well, the show is Naruto.
Okay, nice. I like it. There we go. That's solid. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like. We like hearing about the sort of warm ups and superstitions and things that people do to get ready. So that's pretty solid there. And
Yeah.
then, if you were talking to a young goalie now, somebody who wants to kind of emulate you and be successful playing in the ALL, what advice would you give a young goalie who wants to play?
I mean, just make sure you talk a lot. That's like probably the hardest thing about being a goalie. Because like you can learn the fundamentals like real easily, but you have to have a voice and learn how to control your defense. Because if you can't do that, then it's a lot harder to play the play the position.
Mm. What's like the best like piece of advice or tip that you got since playing goalie?
Um, Arc and angle.
Mm.
That's a that was a PJ thing, and like because I never had a goalie coach until like really like probably seventh grade when I was with Bryan, and then I got to like eighth grade and PJ started coming in showing me like how to do it and whatnot, and that's when he taught me the arc and angle and just it helped me like with saves so much more. It's just you have to learn your arc and angle if you want to go if you're a higher arc or a lower arc, and it's just that's probably the biggest thing that I've always stuck to since I've been playing the position.
And does your arc change for like outside versus inside shots?
Yeah, down coming down the alley. I'd probably say I'd probably be more towards pipe just so I can step a little lateral
Mm.
because the lateral step helps it more if they're trying to go like top side or back right because it helps you get it there. Like it saves them a little bit more time.
Yeah. And we've seen you come, out of the cage and you feel pretty comfortable out there as well. Like, have you ever scored playing goalie before?
Yeah, when I do travel teams or um when I was a little younger, like during middle school and whatnot. Haven't scored in the ALL yet, so we're looking.
There's still time.
We're
Yeah.
there is still time.
Have you seen that Blaze Reardon clip of him
Oh
scoring?
yeah,
Oh my gosh,
just him
dude.
running through that guy
Yeah.
randomly, a little circle, and then just right in. I was like, ooh.
Yeah,
But
that's one of the most
yeah.
electric clips I think I've ever seen, lacrosse wise. How about you, Brian?
Have I? Yeah, I've definitely I've seen it. And anytime you get those goalie goals, we see a lot more. Not even the necessarily like the dodge and play, but a lot of teams. I've brought this up in the podcast. It feels like at the college level too a lot, and I know we have teams out here to do it. Like teams are doing more of a 10-man ride,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and I feel like we see a lot of like long distance goals by like heads up goalies, and it's
Mm.
kind of taught as like a defense against it that they take that shot. So
Yeah.
definitely opportunities there. I think, and I just want to now that the goalie coach in me is coming out, and just the two things you said there, I think Diggy are so important. I think communication is so underrated, and when I work with guys extensively, I like to talk about how like there's a lot of like set things that you would call that like people know about, right? Like okay, you gotta call out where the ball is, tell them when they're at GLE to turn around when they're dodged from behind, but like that ownership of like communicating with your team, talking off ball stuff, like letting guys know, like, yeah, good job. Like, you're doing great. Play harder on them or push out more, things like that. There's so much like indirect kind of communication that's good. And then the other thing I tell guys is like, don't, my biggest pet peeve is a lot of times it's like, oh, who's hot or like who's the two slide or whatnot. Like when you're able to see it, like you should call it out as a goalie, right? You be
Oh yeah,
that
for sure.
quarterback out there and be like, hey, Mike, you're hot. Get in here now. You're ready to go. That's a really big thing. And arc and angle, so big also. Probably the one thing I see very consistently with like new goalies out here that I work with. And, Diggy, you mentioned not really having like sort of goalie kind of instruction is that like people don't really understand what goes into that and really like what are the pros and cons of where you want to play and how does it work for your style. And I think that's another thing that, if you're a young goalie, listen to this, give some thought into that and watch how people stand. Do they stand further out? Or are they further in? And
Yeah,
play around with that because it makes a huge difference. And even to your follow up question, Alex and Diggy, you said it like sometimes even within your normal arc, you will go into different variations of that based on the shooting situation. So
Yeah.
all good
yeah, for
things.
sure.
And, we've seen you be a good example of that, Diggy. So definitely keep up the great work and just kind of end with a couple fun questions here now. So who's the toughest shooter you have to face in the ALL?
Toughest shooter. Man. I don't really know who I would give that to right now. Like, there's so many people to think of.
You can give us a couple. If you give us like a top three in no order, if you've got a few coming to mind.
Well, there's always Bolson, who will just like try and take you. Like if he's going down the aisle on the left side, he'll always go to your right side, and
Thank
it's
you,
just
Diggy.
like,
That was my guess, by the way, Brian. Points credit to me.
Yeah, yeah. He's
yeah,
got
like
that good blowing away shot on the run.
yeah, he's. I mean, like sometimes I'll even like I'll just try and just like get there before it happens, and sometimes it's just already there, and I'm like, all right, well that's great.
Yeah.
And then there's like, and then there's Finder just has a fast shot. Finder has a really fast shot,
This
and he'll just
Finder
like,
guy, man, Alex, that was the other one we were talking about. We were
I
joking
know.
that
We might have to have him on again just to for a
yeah.
victory lap on the pod.
Yeah, I
All
don't
the cloud he's getting on here.
yeah, I don't know if you've heard all the episodes that we had two different long stick middies say that Dylan was the toughest player to defend against in the ALL. So, and he's got
that's
a great shot too.
yeah, he can hide his stick real well, which is very hard for a goalie. Like if
Yeah.
as long as you're hiding that stick, it's like I just have to go where the ball is going.
Mm.
But then there's that. I mean, he's very fast, so I understand why he's very hard to defend. Like I give him his props. And then there's like who's another one? Oh, Jace White too, the attackman.
Hmm.
He's he's very like fake. He's a faker. Like it's annoying when you have to go up against those.
Yeah,
Oh
good
yeah.
finisher and tight. I like that. Like, you kind of gave us a range of all the different styles of shots that you see. So that was good.
Yeah, that was good. Good variety there. Diggy, what do you like to do outside of lacrosse?
Um, I mean like lacrosse is mainly my whole life. I'm not gonna lie. It's just like practice. We have like six practices a week, so for 2 hours. Other than that, I'm just sleeping.
Yeah, well, that'll keep you busy if you're playing that much. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
true. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I
let's talk about your teammates a little bit here.
Hmm.
Who's the clown on the team? Is it you?
um no. Probably like Derek Franson
Oh
or
yeah,
like
that's a good one.
that is yeah you oh yeah you know Derek. I forgot about
Yep.
that.
Yep. I should have guessed
Well,
that.
yeah, either Derek or like probably Wilson Gray or lefty attackman. They're probably
It's always the attack.
it's probably one of those two.
Yeah.
What do you got on the playlist before the game with the team there? Who's running the music?
Oh well, I'm always on Ox. I have
Okay, there you
been
Hmm.
go.
for like I've always have been since like my freshman year, other than like one game. But sometimes it'll be reggae, if like 'cause the guys are just into that. So like, and I am too. So it's just like a chill vibe before we go into a game, or it's just straight rap sometimes, and just to get us pumped. All of those and whatnot.
All right, solid,
Nice.
solid.
Yeah.
I think that about wraps everything on mine. Alex, you got anything else?
Man, no, I don't think so. I think we're good to go. Oh, actually, yeah, I did have one other fun one. So, if you were to kind of pick a player on your team, um, to kind of guarantee a win in like a goalie challenge where you and him would kind of switch positions, so he'd get 10 shots on you, you'd get 10 shots on him, both playing goalie and both playing a shooter. Who would you kind of guarantee a win against?
Um, Out of all the people, I'd probably say like, ah, um, Jackson Mox.
Jackson
He's one of
Mox.
our defenders. So
Oh, I don't know, man.
he's low.
Those poles are hard to stop sometimes.
Yeah, certain ones, but I'm pretty sure I got him.
Okay. There you
We
go,
like that.
Jackson. He's calling you
Yeah,
out. There you go.
there you go. I like it. Well, listen, Diggy, that was a great interview. Thanks for jumping on with us. Congrats on getting through the regular season here, and good luck in the playoffs here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thanks, Diggy.
Have a good night, man.
You too.
Welcome, everybody, to our playoff preview portion of the AZ LAX Report. I'm excited to bring on two guests, one new, one previous guest, unfortunately related to me. I'm going to have to hear him again, but I'd like to welcome to the podcast Cody Petillo, assistant coach at GCU, but we're going to get to him in a minute. I'd like to introduce our second guest as well. We've got them both on, little tag team episode here. Coach Pablo Sherman, the head coach of the Brophy JV team. We have not had a JV coach on yet, and we're going to have Pablo on later for a longer, in-depth interview. But Coach Pablo, let's introduce you to the podcast. How you doing tonight?
Great, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm definitely an honor to be on here with you, and I know this has been a project you've been working on for a long time, so happy to be on.
Yeah, that's great. And why don't you tell us a little bit? We know your season's ended with the JV there, so why don't you tell us a little bit about how it went, maybe shout out any players, and what you're looking forward to with those teams in the future.
Yeah, it's my third year on staff at Brophy, my second as head coach. I believe we finished 5-6-1, but don't quote me on that. We had a good year, man. We had some kids for the first time who was like second class who actually played before, kind of know what they're doing. So that definitely helped a little bit because the first year we was pretty much, hey, I got cut from baseball or I didn't make this. My mom sent me out here. Having a couple kids who know what they're doing, played before, who know what they're doing and who played before has definitely helped. Like Michael Swenson had one hell of a year. We finished our season on this past Friday at Boulder Creek. He had 5 goals and I think 2 assists. So he's a kid that's been working really hard. It's good to see it pay off for him. Cannon Jansen came on probably about midway through our season. He had a seizure before the season, so we had to do some obviously precautions there, but came on and was probably our number one defenseman finishing the season off. So those two had a great year. Also Miles Thornton, baseball kid, didn't make the team unfortunately, came out and actually was pretty much our starting goalie for the second half of the season. So kind of fun to see those kids come to their own and kind of love lacrosse and fall in love with the game.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you've got a pretty big role there. Obviously we talk about Brophy a lot on the podcast. They're successful, they're the number one team going into the playoffs, so being part of that program, the JV is a big role. And like I said, we're going to have you on for a longer episode because I think it's important for people to recognize that playing JV early on, your freshman year or something like that is not a sign that you're a bad lacrosse player or anything like that. It's about development and getting players ready to compete at the varsity level. So we're looking forward to hearing more from you, and let's kick it over to our other guest, Cody Petillo, the offensive coordinator for Grand Canyon University. They wrapped up their MCLA lacrosse season, I believe, last weekend, maybe the weekend before. Cody, you got a chance to join us on our bonus episode where we kind of just talked shop with Coach Pat Harbison for a little bit, so welcome back. And why don't you give us a little summary of your GCU season and how it ended for you?
Yeah, our season didn't necessarily go the way we wanted it to, unfortunately. We finished up a couple weekends ago against ASU for our senior night. Celebrated, I thought it was 4 or 5 seniors we had, which was nice to send them off. Too bad we couldn't send them off with a win. We were kind of, we didn't have the best season record-wise within our conference, but we could have had a chance of sneaking into the conference playoffs had we beaten ASU a couple weekends ago. We would have held the tiebreaker with them, and we would have snuck in with the 4th seed, and we were kind of hoping for that to maybe give ourselves a little bit of a turnaround for how the season went, the regular season went. We were a young team, though. Offensively, I think we probably rotated through maybe 6 freshmen at the midfield at some point, with only 1 senior starting, and then we had a senior midi. So we were a young team. A lot of the games we lost, we were, if you go back and watch them, we're right there with those teams that beat us. And all of our losses were to teams that were in the top 15 of the MCLA. And you watch them back and you see we're right there with them up until like the third quarter, and then we kind of just we fell apart in a few games, and I think that goes to the the youngness of the team. I think our leadership within the team was a little lacking this year. I definitely think we can improve on that next year, and hopefully, specifically talking about the offense, some of these kids come back with some better sticks. I would like to see, that's for sure. But overall, I think it was a good first year back coaching at GCU. I enjoyed it, and I'm excited for the team to come back next year and the potential that we're going to have, because I think we'll be pretty solid. We're turning a lot of guys, so it's going to be a good fall coming up to see who comes back and just how much better they've gotten. You always want to be a year better starting next season. So,
well, that's good there. And GCU players, if you're listening, you're on watch there. You got to work on your sticks and get ready for next season. We won't blame the coach for your offensive play, I guess. We'll just have to we'll see what the players bring on. But anyway, just teasing you there. We're going to talk a little bit more about, I think, MCLA in the off season, and as we get ready, we'd love to cover the teams out here more as we go forward. But let's get to the heart of what we got you both on here for. So we are going into our ALL playoffs. We have posted a bracket challenge. People listening to this podcast have already seen it, hopefully on Instagram, and signed up. If you're listening to it now, please go check out our Instagram post on how to sign up for it. You can register through 7 p.m. on Tuesday, April 23rd, which will be the start of the playoffs. We wanted to share some picks. Now, earlier in the podcast, you heard me and Alex go over it a little bit. We talked a little bit about the first round, but we want to kind of go through your brackets. I'm going to go through my bracket as well, so we'll go game by game. We'll kind of talk through it here. Cody, you did coach in the ALL last year with Pinnacle, so you're familiar with some of the teams. You've watched some games this year. Pablo, same thing. You've been a JV coach. You've watched some of the varsity games after your games, and you get to see and know some of the coaches and teams as well. So we thought it'd be interesting to get some different perspectives on here, and hopefully we'll see how your picks do against our overall bracket competitors. So with that said, let's jump right into the bracket and the predictions. So our first round games, we have Oro Valley versus Scottsdale High School. I will kick it off first. I've got Scottsdale High School in this one. I think they've been close in a bunch of games here. Got some talented players out there. We got a chance to talk to Jack Berman. He's a good face-off player for them, friend of the podcast. So I'm going to go with Scottsdale winning their first round matchup against Oro Valley. Cody, who do you have?
I have Scottsdale winning as well.
All right, Pablo.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump on the team right here and go with Scottsdale, man. I think if you have a face-up guy like that, especially in the playoffs, you're able to control possession, control the tempo of the game. It's pretty easy to take over.
Yeah, that's big there. And hey, listen, this is the media business we're in, and Oro Valley players, if you're listening, go ahead and this little bulletin board material for you. Let's you take it, and obviously we'll preface this by saying we're doing our best to make our picks. We know everybody here is working hard, so definitely still want to say good luck to everybody as we go forward. Let's jump into the second matchup. This was a little interesting. We talked about it on the podcast earlier, if you're listening, a little bit of a matchup change based on the seeding. We have Arcadia versus the Brophy Varsity 2 team. Brophy Varsity 2 getting a chance to come out of the Cactus Conference, right? Cactus Conference, and play against Arcadia, who had a really good and strong showing this season. Pablo, how about we start with you?
I'm going to go Brophy V2 here, man. I know the boys are fired up to be in the playoffs. I know originally they weren't, so they were pretty bummed, but now having that little second bit of life, I'm pretty sure they're going to be fired up on Tuesday. But it'll be interesting to see how Brady Baltell does his first playoff game as a freshman goaltender. My opinion, one of the better goalies in the state, but going to play the big game, so that'll be interesting. Also, the Brophy offense, that'll be interesting to see if Nico Losota having some goals. Kathan Shirakuri, he'll have to play well. Kyle Caden Kwok. I'm going to say his dad's name. Yeah, Caden Kwok. I'll have a big game. Matthew Lightman, or Drew Lightman, excuse me. That's his brother. But, yeah, so I think the boys are fired up, and I'm going to take Brophy V2 all the way here.
Yeah, momentum, definitely a big one there, too. And you mentioned Brady. We actually shouted him out earlier. He was a leader in statistics for goalies this season. And going back to even, whether it's JV or varsity too, I think development of players is really good, and it goes to show you kind of the depth Brophy's got and opportunity for some of these players to play. Cody, who do you got in this one?
Well, I first want to say it's unfortunate that these other teams did not manage to find their way to have a team for the playoffs. I think every kid wants to be in the playoffs and get out there and compete, regardless of if you're a talented team, a young team, whatever it is. I mean, look, you got Brophy V2, who's mostly freshmen and sophomore. Is that right, Pablo?
For the most part, yeah. There's a couple upperclassmen sprinkled in there, but I would say the majority of the starters will be on the field. They're going to be freshmen and sophomores, yes.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like that doesn't really mean anything in terms of being able to go out there and compete. I do have Arcadia winning this, though. I think Brophy could come out and give them a little bit of a run. They're going to have that energy. They're going to be excited to be able to be in the playoffs. I know that obviously Brophy's a very well coached program over there, so they're going to have the talent. But I do think Arcadia will pull it out based on their they're not, a young team. They've been there, they've got some talented upperclassmen on that team, so I think they will end up pulling it out. Although I wouldn't be surprised if it's a fairly competitive game for a bit of the game, but I think towards the end Arcadia is going to pull away.
Yeah, I think I'm going to second you and say I think it's going to be a close game there. I've actually been really impressed with Arcadia. They've really had a strong season, finished well. I'm going to correct you slightly, Cody. I believe, and I could be wrong, so so much for me being the AZ LAX Report here, but I believe they only have 2 seniors, actually. So really led by a strong junior class. 2 players we coached, Cody, Luke Mellon, Davis Witherspoon. We had Davis on the podcast. Good players on the offensive side. Their goalie's really talented as well, too. But I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go with Arcadia on this one, making it to the second round there. Let's jump to our next matchup. Again, a little bit of a shift with the seeding changes. We have Higley, who was the champion in the Cactus Conference, defeating Cactus Shadows on Friday night to get their playoff spot, and they are going to play Desert Vista. So, Cody, why don't you start this one out here? What do you got?
I have Desert Vista winning this one. I think, you got Diggy in net, the playoffs. I think he's gonna show up and play very well. I mean, I don't know much about Desert Vista this year in terms of what their offense looks like. I just, I know from the couple of games I checked the scores when they played Pinnacle. But I do think, having Diggy in net, and then you're going against a weaker opponent, that's going to be tough for them to score some goals. So I think Desert Vista handles them pretty well.
Yeah, and I'm gonna agree with you there. I'm gonna go with Desert Vista also. I did get to see Higley play. I know they had a little rallying cry, kind of being the winning team out of that division and getting into the playoffs here. But I think when you get to the playoffs, we're actually interviewing Diggy on this podcast. If you listen into this, you heard him earlier in our interview. Really talented goalie, and I think he's going to help them show up and get through this first round there too. Cody, you'll actually, not surprisingly, we asked Diggy who the team clown was on the Desert Vista team. You want to take a guess?
On Desert Vista?
Yeah. Somebody we coached.
Diggy? I don't know. Isn't the only one we coached from there?
Derek.
Oh, Derek. I forgot Derek's over there.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Sense.
So we know we had some fun coaching Derek and Diggy in some summer tournaments and things like that. Pablo, who you got in this matchup?
I'm going to go Team Rye with Desert Vista, man. Like you said, playoff Diggy's a different animal. Hard to beat, especially with a better team as well. So I just don't see them getting a lot of goals. If they do, good on them, but it's going to be tough to come by.
All right, let's move to our last first-round matchup. We have Boulder Creek versus Corona. I think this one could be an interesting one here. So let's see. I guess I'll go first on this one, right? Let's bring it back around. I'm going to go with Corona here in the upset. Technically, Boulder Creek is seeded higher. I do think that the way our seedings and the lax numbers worked out, playing in that higher level conference and those losses kind of give you strength of schedule and things like that. BC, unfortunately had a rough year. They had they've gone through some volatility. They've got a really good goalie in Kyle Kelly, but I think they've struggled to kind of put all of it together. You never know what's going to happen in the playoffs. They've got some experience there, but this is an up-and-coming Corona team. First-year coach PJ Rovinelli, we had him on the podcast earlier. Talked about what he's trying to do with that team out there. So I'm gonna go with Coach Rovinelli and the Aztecs and Corona with the the upset here in the first round. Let's go to Pablo. Who you got?
I'm going to join with you. I agree. I think they have some good stuff going on down there. I think it'll be a fun one, but I would love to see them pull the upset off.
All right, Cody, what do you got?
Well, I mean, it's going to be 3 for 3 there because I actually, I have Corona as well, beating Boulder Creek. I think they can pull the upset off out of all these first-round matchups. I think it's pretty close with them. I'd like to see him win. First-time head coach out there. It's always great to get a little bit of run in the playoffs. I think, again, they're going to have that excitement behind them because – it's just you're that lower seed going against a typically better Boulder Creek team that we've seen in the past. So, if they get up and they get excited for it, I think they can definitely pull out the upset there.
Yeah, I think emotion will be a big thing there, and I know they had some tough games this week, so they're kind of entering in not necessarily with momentum, but like I said, I think the coaching staff there and those players are going to get riled up and ready for that game. So. There we go, get through the first round. Now here is where I think we're going to get maybe some differences of more differences of opinion here, perhaps on some of them. Let's jump to our next round matchups. Obviously, we've got the top 4 seeds coming in now off of a bye. So first, we are going to have Brophy against Scottsdale High. Cody, why don't you start us out with this one?
I mean, I don't think there's much of a question here. I think Brophy handles Scottsdale with ease in this matchup for them.
Yeah, I think I'll just jump in for my pick as well. Yeah, I do. I think Scottsdale High has competed well this year, but I think everyone pretty much has seen the dominance that Brophy has had, and I think they're going to be able to take their first game of the playoffs in the second round here with conviction. Pablo, I'm going to take a wild guess and going to say you're picking Brophy too, but what do you got?
Yeah, no, that's a crazy assumption. Yeah, no, I'm going to go Brophy all the way, man. To be honest, they're not going to see a better team in state than they've already seen with the strength of schedule Coach Pat Harbison put together. I mean, when you play that many out-of-town teams and you host that many good teams, that's why you do it. It makes playoff time not quote-unquote easy, but, your kids have played a big game. They're used to the atmosphere, and more importantly, they've won those games. So, no, I think it'll be Brophy all the way, man. Not to be honest, I don't think it'll be close. But hopefully the starters out, no one gets hurt, and they're on in the next round.
Yeah, there we go. Now here's one I think will be interesting. So we've got you've got Perry versus Brophy Varsity 2 in the second round here, Pablo. So why don't we stick with you? Who do you got coming out of that matchup?
I'm gonna go Perry on that one, man. They have some horses over there, some athletes that just on the V2 we just don't have with obviously our V1 team. But no, I think it'll be a competitive game. I think Perry has the horses and the talent just to eke out the next round.
All right, Cody, you've got Perry going against Arcadia. Who do you got in that matchup?
So I think the game will be pretty competitive to start out. I think Arcadia will give them a little bit of a run. A team like that, I don't think they're going to roll over so easily getting into that second round. But I do have Perry winning. I think Perry just has more talent around, throughout the whole offense, defense, goalie. I think they just – a little bit better talent-wise, so they should be able to pull this one out.
Yeah, I think Perry will win. I think Perry has more talent. I think Perry just has more talent around, defense, goalie. I think they just a little bit better talent-wise, so they should be able to pull this one out.
All right,
Yeah, and I'm gonna go with Perry too, but I agree. I think this actually might be the best, one of the best games to watch. I think that we'll get to Pinnacle TV. I think that'll be a good one too. I almost want to pick Arcadia here because I think they've actually had a really good season and have a chance here at an upset. I do think they do, but I think Perry's got some more experience. They were in the championship game last year. Got some guys on that team who remember that feeling, and I think they're going to want a rematch against Brophy. Obviously, Dylan Finder, Cody, we coached him. We've had two player interviews in the podcast say he's the toughest guy to defend against, and Diggy actually said he's probably the toughest guy shooting wise against as well. So Dylan Finder getting a lot of love on the AZ LAX report by his peers.
Shout out Rutgers. Scarlet Knights.
He's going to Rutgers, where you went there, and I told my Rutgers story when we interviewed him.
Briefly.
Yeah. So I think behind Dylan, they're going to get the victory there. Moving on to our next matchup, I think we've all got the same one here. Pinnacle against Desert Vista. I'll go first on this one. I think that last game and this game are going to be the two closest games. I don't want to bet against Diggy, and Desert Vista's got some experience there, but I think Pinnacle's got a little bit of a, not necessarily a chip on their shoulder, but I think they want to prove that they belong here and they can play, and I think they're going to come in with a strong, just sturdy defense that is going to be tough to score against, and I think they're going to be able to control kind of time of possession as well from that standpoint, and just kind of withhold that. I don't see Desert Vista offense really punching through the Pinnacle defense as much. Now, that's not to say I see the Pinnacle offense punching through as much. I think we're going to have a really good defensive battle here. But I'm going to go with Pinnacle in this one here. They're going to get that bye. They're resting up right now, and they'll beat Desert Vista in the second round matchup here. Cody, what do you got?
I have Pinnacle winning as well. I think I watched their last game. No, I didn't watch it. I saw the score of that one, but they, beat them twice this season, regular season, once in overtime earlier in the year, and then they beat them pretty handily. The second matchup they had, I think, unless Diggy's going to be saving every single shot that comes at him, I don't see Desert Vista pulling this one out. I think Pinnacle's kind of on a good momentum right now, winning these last couple games. That I think they're just going to keep riding that, and they'll hand. They'll get the clean sweep against Desert Vista this year.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that makes me nervous. It's tough to beat a team 3 times in a season. And again, we heard Diggy on this podcast earlier. I think he's, a top-tier goalie here in the league, and you never know what can happen there. And they got a lot of experience. Coach Dan Lannon's been around for a while, and he knows how to play in the ALL. And it's going to be a tough matchup. But let's see. Pablo, who do you got in this one?
I'm going to go DV, man. Like you said, it's hard to beat a team 3 times, especially a goalie like Diggy. If he knows what's coming, if he watches the film, I'm sure they've studied the film. I like DV in the upset here.
I like that. I can definitely I can see where that's coming from. So, Pablo, why don't we stick with you? We're going into our last second-round matchup, Notre Dame Prep versus Corona. You have. Who you got in that one?
I'll go NDP on that. I just depth and outside of us, outside of Brophy, they're probably one of the better teams. I just think they'll get through that pretty easily.
All right, Cody, same matchup. Who you got?
Yeah, I have NDP winning as well. I don't think they go down to Corona. I think they'll handle that business pretty easily against them.
Yeah, and I kind of went back and forth on this one a little bit. I think it would be a big upset for Corona to take them over. NDP's been a little bit short-manned from how they started the season, which I think, is obviously going to favor Corona there. But they got some really good players that are tough to play against. I've worked with their goalie, Luke, their face-off player. We've coached Cody. Caleb Casey is really good. They've got a good balanced team. But you know what? I'm going to call this out here for the sake of getting some excitement here. I'm going to go with Corona in the upset. I'm going to pick the underdogs. They're going to be the Cinderella story, get into the Final Four. and they're going to pull the upset over Notre Dame Prep. So that's going to be my pick for that one. And that's going to bring us into the Final Four. I think our semifinal matchup up top of the bracket, we've got the same. So let's kick it to Pablo. Brophy versus Perry. Who you got advancing to the championship?
Brophy. Again, I just don't think they're going to see a harder team than they've seen all season in the playoffs. And again, when it comes to coaching, Coach Pat, Coach Dan Davis, Coach Parker, Coach Matt, they do a great job of scouting. I know you called the state game last year versus Perry. There wasn't anything that we didn't know or didn't expect. Coach Pat had the boys ready and prepared, and that doesn't change anything this year. It's a standard that he's setting. So, yeah, I think it's Brophy makes it back to the state championship.
Yeah, and I'll jump in here too. I'm going to agree with you. I think that's going to, I think Brophy is going to kind of win that one. They've played Perry well all year. We just talked about, some good players on Perry and Dylan Finder and some other guys on that team there. But I think Brophy's on a mission, and I think getting to the championship for them is going to be just a repeat of what they've done. Pablo, you brought up a good point. One of the things I think has been great about these teams, these Brophy teams, really the last 2 years and this year to the third year, is I've seen them get better as the year goes on. The difference between the first couple of games they play versus how they play at the end of the season is been in some cases night and day, and I think that's a testament to the coaching staff, as you said, and just players who want to continue to get better and the schedule they put together. So not unsurprisingly, I'm going to go with Brophy getting to the championship. Cody, who do you got?
I do have Brophy as well. I think Perry has a pretty decent offense talent-wise. I think their defense is lacking compared to Brophy's offense, and then I also think Brophy's defense is very sound too, and they're not going to give up a lot of easy goals. They're going to have to really earn those goals if Perry wants to score. I also, kind of piggybacking on Pablo there, the coaching staff over at Brophy is phenomenal. Obviously we've coached with those guys before. I think they do a great job of getting that team to where they need to be throughout the whole year, just firing on all cylinders, being able to pass and catch, running a smooth offense, playing good fundamental defense, and just all around just a tough team to beat. And especially, they're seeing all these teams from out of state that they play, and some other competition like that really makes them, gives them an edge here in state. So I don't see them losing to Perry at all.
All right, so we're in agreement there. Let's go on to our next semifinal matchup, Pinnacle versus Notre Dame Prep. For us, let's start with you then, Cody. Pinnacle versus NDP. Who you got going to the championship?
I think this is going to be a good game. You've mentioned that NDP's down a few guys, some of their better players, so that definitely hurts them. I also think this is Pinnacle's, it's their year to get to the championship. I think they just play a good, sound game and, score the goals that they need to score and not give up any easy goals on defense. I think they're going to pull this one out, and they'll be in the championship this year.
Yeah, and I'll jump in since I got the same matchup. It's tough, and Notre Dame, I watched them play their second game against Brophy, and they were short man. They had a couple guys hurt and some other guys going on. And my understanding, we've talked about Cooper Perry on the podcast. He's a great player. He's a great football player, and my understanding is that he's prepared and going to play football in college, and he's kind of making decisions around that. So not to be rumor boys or anything, but I don't think he's playing in this game, which I think hurts NDP. I think they've got some good kids, some other underclassmen that are talented. I think they're going to keep getting better. But I got Pinnacle here, I think, as well. Technically it's an upset. NDP is going to be the, Oh, actually, wait a second. I had Corona with the upset here, didn't I? Oh, yeah. So what am I talking about? Yeah, sorry. Here we go. Well, those opinions still stand for your matchup, but I've got Pinnacle over Corona because I got Corona with the upset over NDP for most of the same reasons there. So I'm going to say Corona's Cinderella run ends here, though, and Pinnacle behind that really stout defense and good goalie. beats them, I think, pretty, I won't say easily, but I think that defense is going to be tough for Corona to score against. So I am going to go with Pinnacle in the semifinals, not for the exact same reasons, Cody, because we didn't have the same matchup. But Pablo, you have the same matchup. NDP, or no, I'm sorry, you don't. See, this is what I get for doing this podcast late at night here. I'm screwing all this up here. Pablo, you got Desert Vista against NDP in the semifinals. Who do you got coming out of that matchup?
I'm going DB, man. I'm gonna ride the Diggy train the whole way down. We'll see how it goes, man. I mean, he's a kid like that. I mean, he's good. And NDP, like you said, they don't have that one kid. It's gonna be hard for them to get these shooters, man. Again, it's hard to beat that kid in the playoffs. You know, he's got the heart and soul that. I mean, but again, if he's cold, you know, that team got to ride and dies with him. So if he's on, man, he's on. It's hard to beat. I'm going to take them, give them a chance at state.
Yeah, hey, and I like that. And listen, we talked about Diggy, and we brought it up, Cody, on the interview with Diggy when we won that Sandstorm tournament. You know, we got to give him credit. He was hot that weekend, and he carried our team and made a difference, and he can make a big impact on the play here. So I love that. That brings us down to our championship. Cody, me and you have the same matchup, so let's go with us first. Although, well, we'll see how this shakes out here. I have got Brophy against Pinnacle. I think, you know, as much as I love Pinnacle, Alex, my co-host here, and I do think that Pinnacle defense is really good. I've seen their games against Brophy, and you know what? Hey, Pinnacle, if you want to use this as bulletin board material, go for it. I feel like they struggle to move the ball. Maybe they're a little scared. I don't know. The possession just kind of dominates Brophy, and I think as good as that defense is, they're going to get worn down. You know, I hope we get a good championship game, and I hope they're listening to this podcast and saying, "F you, Bryan. We're gonna battle and we're gonna get there." But I'm gonna go with Brophy in the championship over Pinnacle, and I'm gonna go with a score of this is rough, but I'm gonna go with 19 total goals, and I'm gonna go with 13-6. You know what? No, I'm gonna change that. I'm gonna go 15-4. Brophy. I think it's gonna be close for maybe the first half, and I think Brophy's just gonna wear them down, and Brophy's gonna walk away with their third championship in 3 years with a victory over Pinnacle. Sorry, Alex, 15-4. Cody, you got Brophy and Pinnacle in your championship. What do you got for your prediction?
Yeah, I mean, this could be a very good game. You know, at the end of the day, Pinnacle basically has to play a perfect game of lacrosse in order for them to win. I don't think they can beat them otherwise. You know, they need to be scoring a lot of goals, which has been an issue in the past. I know from coaching there. They need to have it. They're going to have to score 12 plus goals in this game if they want to keep it close and you know, try and win it. Defensively, they can't let up any easy goals. And they also can't give up any dumb penalties.
That's a good point.
They tend to, some of their defensive players tend to kind of get a little wild out there, and they'll get an unnecessary penalty that, you know, there's really just no need to take. And I think if Brophy's getting man up opportunities, you know, I don't see them not scoring on those. Face-off's going to be tough. You know, Brophy's got a great face-off guy over there, and if he's dominating, it's going to be hard for Pinnacle to, you know, to have a lot of possessions. And when they do, they have to cherish every possession they get. They have to try and score or get something out of every possession. They can't have, you know, a few possessions in a row where they don't get anything or any looks at the cage. So unless Brophy plays a perfect game, Pinnacle plays a perfect game, I don't see Brophy losing. Brophy's just, you know, just a lot of talent over there, and it's a good coaching matchup. Like Alex and Max, great coaches over there at Pinnacle. Obviously, I said it before, Brophy's coaches are great too. So I think you know, Pinnacle will be prepared, but it's going to be, do they want to show up and win, or are they going to kind of, like you said, play a little timid, a little scared against them? And they come out firing on all cylinders, you know, they'll make it a game, but it's going to be tough for them to ultimately pull it out. And I think Brophy has to make a lot of mistakes out there, unnecessary mistakes, if Pinnacle wants to see the win. So I do have Brophy winning. I'd love to see Pinnacle win. I think they have a great team. Last year I knew we were kind of right there, and this year is just another shot at it. But I think at the end of the day, Brophy is a little bit more talented, and they should, based on experience to have being there and winning it, I don't think they're going to come out flat or anything like that. So they'll come out, and I think Brophy will win.
All right, and then what do you got for total goals as our official tiebreaker, and then unofficial? Why don't you give me a score prediction?
So I said 26 goals.
Okay.
And
that's a high-scoring game for two good defenses.
Hey, it's the playoffs. It's the championship game.
I think,
but I do think it's, even though Pinnacle has a very talented defense and, they're a great goalie, I think Brophy's offensive talent is it's far and above everybody else in the state. So I have a 16-10 score.
Okay. All right. I like that. Good competitive game there. That's pretty good. Pablo, you've got Brophy going against Desert Vista. That's a rematch of not last year's, but the previous year championship game. What do you got going into that one? Who you got winning? What do you got for a score and our tiebreaker total goals?
Brophy finishes the three-peat. It's going to be a death by a million shots for Diggy, unfortunately. Brophy's going to just shoot. It's what they do. I mean, they have – what's unique about this year's Brophy team is it's not really one guy. They can kind of kill you from almost every position out of the starting six on the field. You got Eric Wolfson, going to bulldodge downhill. You got Larry Miller, who can finish on the backside and his left hand. You got Josh Busey, who can create for himself very well off the dodge. Carter Barkley-White has a sneaky 25 goals on that left side, kind of backdoor attackman. So, I mean, they can really hit you from anywhere, and especially when Coach Pat and his staff have time to prepare. They're just going to be a hard one to take down, man. That's not even to mention their special teams with Ryan Peitzmeyer and goalie and Deion James the face-off X, and then you have Connor Rassis or Noah Burdick and Harrison Yu, aka Crispy, on the wing. And then their defense you have, I think everyone on that defense is almost a returning starter. Don't quote me on that, but I'm almost positive. It's just, and again, they played some really good out-of-state teams. Coach Pat didn't just schedule a bunch of cupcakes. It was Dallas Jesuit, it was Loyola, it was Mater Dei. And some of those, went well, and some of them were learning experiences, and I think those learning experiences are going to really kind of come to fruition here in the playoffs and hopefully in the state championship game.
Yeah, so you got Brophy in the championship win in there. What do you got for the total goals, and what do you got for the score?
Ooh. No disrespect to DV here. I'll say 25 total goals. Say Brophy 20-5.
Wow, okay. All right, that's a strong one. Well, hey, listen, and for what it's worth, they had a good showing against Desert Vista when they played them in the championship last time. And, their offensive ability to just kind of wear down good defenses is it's been remarkable to watch because it's not just bad volume shooting, it's really skillful play. And I'm going to say this, I haven't necessarily said on the podcast, we've talked a lot earlier in the season. This is no disrespect to him. I think we talked about Deion James as being like an MVP for Brophy. When you have a face-off player who can score, who can get the ball when you score so you can get runs going, and when you give up a goal on defense and your face-off guy's going to get the ball and you're at least going to have a possession to catch your breath, that's so huge. And I think Deion could definitely be the MVP, but I'm going to say over the last few games, I've changed my mind a little bit as far as team MVP. Eric Wolfson has developed into a extremely talented player who can be an offensive threat in so many different ways. And I thought earlier in the season it was going to be a runaway for Deion being the MVP of that team. I would put my money on Eric as well. He scores running downhill. He scores room and time. He feeds the crease when he's in that top shooting spot on man up. He dodges from invert positions. He dodges from up top. Like, now listen, everybody's not going to be as big as he is. Pablo, you wouldn't have been able to play like Eric did. No offense. I wouldn't either. Cody, downhill for sure. Yeah, Cody, you're a big. You were sizable. You're not as big as he was, but you're an athlete. I'll give you some credit. You could play like that. But I tell you what, if I was a parent and I had a kid who wanted to be a good lacrosse player, I'd be watching every single Brophy game. And especially if you're, he plays midfield, but they put him in attack sometimes too. But I would be watching what Eric does, and I would be trying to emulate him. He is an extremely well-rounded player, and I think not Connor Rassis, Cole Rassis. We watched him play. All three of us watched him play in different games. He scored a gazillion goals. He's one of the best players in Arizona history. I tell you what, though, I think Eric is just as good, even though the numbers may not show it. I think the way he plays and the threat that he provides on the offense in different ways is something that, again, if I'm a young player, I'm watching him, I'm trying to emulate how he plays. I got Brophy. Right? What'd you say?
Yeah.
Wolfson's a midi, right?
Yeah, primarily runs on the midfield, yeah.
Yeah.
And then one thing I want to touch on, like you mentioned, Bryan, is how Brophy gets better as the season goes. Like, just some inside baseball, I think this year's team, there's a lot of question marks to start the season as far as, who's going to produce and who's going to take leadership. And I think as the season went on and playing those out-of-state games and taking a couple lumps, I think it was kind of, hey, either we're going to come together and, make a run or try to fall apart. I think the seniors this year, Noah specifically did a great job of leadership and kind of pull those guys together. And Eric's done a lot of great stuff with his play on the field. I think that, like you said, they've got a lot better as time's kind of gone on.
Yeah, I agree completely. I went into this season thinking, this might be an opportunity for somebody to kind of knock him off the ledge. And I think that team has just gotten better and better as the season's gone on. And I got him in the championship as well, too. So we all got Brophy winning a few different routes to get there. So we'll see how the points shake up as the rounds go on. And then we've got a couple different final scores and total goals against. But, hey, guys, this was pretty fun. I think this was pretty awesome to be able to kind of go through our bracket, give some recognition to all the teams that are playing in the playoffs this year. Our goal with this podcast is continue to help grow the game and recognize players and teams and the success that they had. So this was super fun. If you're a listener right now and you've not signed up for the bracket challenge, go ahead, check our Instagram page. You'll get information on there. Sign up. Let's see if you got it. If you disagree with our picks, if you agree with our picks, put them in. We'll see who ultimately comes out on top. Cody, Pablo, you got anything else to add before we call it a night here?
Yeah, looking forward to playoffs. Yeah.
Yeah, sign up for the DCU Summer Lacrosse Camp.
There you go. Go ahead, Cody. Give us a plug. Tell us all about it. No free ads, but we'll give you an
Summer
ad.
Lacrosse Camp again. We run it indoors so you guys aren't outside dying in the heat in the middle of the summer. It's great learning. You're going to get coached by some college coaches. Most kids leave learning a little something new each day, and that's ultimately the goal. Is they pick up something. They hear a little something here. Oh, maybe I'll tweak this, tweak that, and ultimately get a little bit better from this. I think it's also great for kids who are new to the game. They should definitely be signing up and coming out. So,
I love it. Pablo, you got any parting words for us?
No, I'm excited for the playoffs to start and a little bit of time off here. We actually have so many kids at Brophy interested. We're going to have a summer team this year, so a little bit of time off. Then we're headed up to Irvine June 2nd, so that'll be fun with that group. And it's another part of building the program at Brophy that we're working on to be not only the best program in Arizona, but the best program on the West Coast. And it's another step in that direction. So looking forward to the time off, but also ready to get back at it.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And hey, you mentioned it. Brophy's competed against some other California teams, and they've gotten themselves on that USA West regional ranking, and They're continuing to make a name for themselves as they establish a program, and you're a piece of that as a JV coach there. Cody, it was great for you to be a part of the Pinnacle program at the time you were. We're happy to see you at the MCLA level. We're definitely going to talk more about that as well. So just good growth of lacrosse out here, and I think we all want the same thing, kind of continuing to get more kids playing in these playoffs. And I hope everyone's listening and excited. If you're a team we picked against, man, go ahead and prove us wrong. Like, we love that. Like, that's great. Give us something. You can go ahead and comment on us about how wrong we are and stuff. I love that. Go ahead and sign up. This is good. But thank you guys for joining us. This was really fun, and we're excited to get the playoffs rolling tomorrow. So thanks, everybody.
Oh, yeah. Let's go.
Go Broncos.
Thanks for listening to episode 7 of the AZ LAX Report. As always, we appreciate your feedback and sharing these episodes with friends, family, coaches, and teammates. Be sure to tune in next week as Bryan and I discuss the Final Four, as well as review your brackets to see who you think will be the state champion in State 48. Until next week, thanks for listening.